is intense. So, all right. I'm going to fast forward this real quick. Just to, I always introduce myself in Ojibwe first. Buju, Wabishka, Benesikwe, Anishinaabe, Injinkazwin, Mukade Mukwa, Indudame, Gakiwe Onaning, Indunjaba. Oh, wow. So when I introduce myself in my native language to honor my culture, and so what I said, transferred back into English, is hello. My name is White Thunderbird Woman. That's how I'm known by my spirit name or the Anishinaabe name. I'm the Black Bear Clan, and I'm from the place across the water. Let's go back here. So this is the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, and Mayangan Wolf relationship. My English name is Tanya Adred. I'm a carnivore biologist for Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission. We work for 11-member tribes in 4 ceded territories and 3 states. So my tribe, Keweenaw, right up here in the Upper Peninsula, and we assist these 11 tribal members in these ceded territories. I have books up here. I'll talk about that later, what the book's all about a little bit, just to give a little background. Usually I don't give a PowerPoint with this, but I realized just today that I usually just talk about this relationship rather than, but this is the first time I've given a presentation to people all over the world in like many years. So I was like, why don't I give a background? Because I'm not in just Wisconsin and Michigan and Minnesota people here. So forgive me for doing this last minute, but I, just kind of give you an idea of visually where I'm from. So I'm the carnivore biologist. I worked for back in 2004 through end of 2013. And then I left Lithwick, and I also worked with the Apostle Islands National Lakeshore. I also got to work with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, doing sea lamprey control, as was mentioned. I got to live in Australia for a couple of years. I worked with the Bunbury Dolphin Discovery Center and worked with wild dolphins. And on the West Coast, I raised a baby kangaroo. I've had a lot of intense wildlife experience. I don't know why animals come to me. I just, I'm grateful and I try to learn from it. So I'm the carnivore biologist. So I started off with Ochig, Nige, Giriga, Biju, Wabisheshi, and Mayangan, Nigan, Ewe, Nama. I just learned that last word. So I take care, or I protect the fisher, otter, bobcat, marten, and now wolves. So fisher, the otter, bobcat, there's marten. I made the front page, so I'm fishing Cliffwood cover girl. And then just recently, and I took over for Peter David, and he retired from Lithwick after 35 years being the wolf, wild rice, and waterfowl biologist. So since my plate was pretty empty, they gave me wolves along with all the other species. So it's been very intense, especially with the what started with their delisting in January of 2021. So it's been intense, it's been emotional. I thought I was just a biologist, and then, sitting in on litigation meetings and management meetings and multiple universities, state, federal agency meetings. So it was quite the learning curve. So I've been honored to take over the wolves, and it's been very intense. And this is my first. I'm literally a wolf pup at this meeting, and pun intended, because it's taking over for Peter David has been amazing and an honor, but also a lot of people started to tell me, you have big shoes to fill, and that's intimidating to me, because then I realized I can't be Peter David, I can't be Adrian White Evan, I learn from these people, but I have to find, pun intended again, my own path through this forest. So please be kind and patient. Very humbled by it. So the Ojibwe and Mayangan creation story. Everyone in our culture, we in the creation story, we are taught through stories. That's how we learn these life lessons. So the creation story, just real kind of fast Ojibwe story. The Great Spirit, the Creator, gave the Ojibwe the job to name all the beings on the planet. And this is a local artist from up in Red Cliff, that's in northern Wisconsin, just north of where the Glyphook offices are. He's a phenomenal artist. I would love to be able to have some of his actual paintings and not just the postcards that I can afford, but someday have a big piece of his work. So this is represents part of that creation story that the Great Spirit gave the Anishinaabe or Nanabuju this huge task. Well, he realized, well, I don't want him to be alone, so he sent the wolf along with him to keep him company and a companion. So they traveled all over the world, naming all the beings, so they became very connected and very close. Once they were done with this enormous task, the Great Spirit said, now you need to walk your separate ways, but you will always be brothers. Sorry about that. You will always be brothers with each other. And from this point forward, what happens to one will happen to the other. So whatever happens to the wolf happens to the Anishinaabe, or the Ojibwe. What happens to the Anishinaabe happens to the wolf. And this will kind of get hard and quick, but starting with once they, separated and the wolf went on his way and the Ojibwe and Anishinaabe went on their way, things started happening and kind of get up to the point where the history, everything, it's kind of just weird and ironic that these things do actually happen throughout our history. So you look in the extirpation of wolves and the genocide of the indigenous people in this country, you look at 1833, you see this depicted, all of us know this, so that the wolf is given a bad name. And so were the natives, around these artists and people, the savage, the wild man, kill the Indian, save the man, it's just, and it's not this long ago that my mother and all my aunts and uncles, they weren't allowed to speak a lick of their language, otherwise they got expelled from school. I was at the end of that era. I know I don't look that old. I think it's a mohawk, but I was at that end of that era where I went to one of the Indian boarding schools. But at the time when I went, and it was in Harbor Springs, Michigan, I was in second grade. And one of the things, and there was not just natives there was African American and Mexicans, and Native Americans. When our parents dumped us there, and then, to help train us and learn Christianity, and we went to this basement room and they cut all our hair off. And so I just recently cut my hair because I've been going through some very intense things, and I had to let that history go, but that's also our power too. But I realized I have a lot of power and a very intense nature about me, and I just gotta find that for myself. So, throughout that history, and even just recently I saw a commercial on flu something where it just came out like a month ago, a flu zone or something. It was a commercial where the wolf was the flu. And I'm just like, quit just this negative connotation on animals. So the extirpation of wolves and the genocide, obviously, annihilated throughout all of its range, and Indian land for sale. So then we're going real fast here, fast forward. 1974, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service listed gray wolves as endangered under the Endangered Species Act. That was 1974. In 1975, President Gerald Ford meeting with tribal leaders at the signing of the Indian Self-Determination Act. These timelines, when you start to look at things, they started to become more powerful, and then there's protections that became on both of them at the same time. Then wolves naturally started coming back into Wisconsin and recolonizing. And in 1978, the first breeding pack was confirmed in Douglas County in Wisconsin. They started coming in through Minnesota and possibly also coming in from the Upper Peninsula and recolonizing the area. This is where I work for, the Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission, formed in 1984 and represents the 11 tribes, as I told you earlier, and within those 3 states. And what they do, our organization does, is we assist my tribe and the other 11 tribal members in those 3 states with their fishing, hunting, and gathering rights. I've learned my plants, I've learned my animals, was a technician there. I got to leave, go to grad school 10 years after I got my bachelor's, and then come back again, had some other experiences working with other agencies, and it's been amazing. So this power and this move coming back. I didn't put it in here just because I lost my mother to COVID. I live alone, and it was right at the beginning. No one knew what was happening. All of us were stuck at home. I was in the process trying to get her out of this nursing home and closer to me. And she died the day before her birthday in 2020. 9 days later, my other aunt died as well of COVID. And then 2 days later was my birthday. And one of my friends didn't realize, he sent me a gift. And for my birthday, because, he's like, sorry you're going through this, So I got excited, and I didn't cry then. It was just such a dark and twisted time. I felt like I was in a Stanley Kubrick and Stephen King movie. What's happening here? I opened up this gift, like a little soul. What did they get me? It was my mom's ashes. And I'm like, this is jacked up. So I'm like, hey Mom, smudged her, and I was like, what kind of time are we living in? And then in January, we lost a lot of people. I know a lot of people I work with. A lot of loss of our tribal elders, loss of that language, loss of those stories. And then in January 2021, wolves get delisted. The hunt happens in Wisconsin. Way over harvested, and that loss started to happen. And it's just like, and I have to keep going to these meetings and doing it and pushing forward and keep on going. And it's just like, we're starting to heal from that, and it's so great to be here with people that understand that, And it's not, I understand too, there's other tribes way up north, and that balance of, one of the tribes, that hunt wolves or help control their numbers a little bit and harvest them, or want to help with the caribou, the moose, the reindeer. I'm just like, wow, and to see that other side of it is just really strong and amazing. So let me go back here. Whoops, I jumped forward. But yeah, I've been very, very honored in this position, and I know this is a quick and intense, lesson, but also, I've realized, I was told, the way we got raised in school is this colonized and assimilated, you leave emotion at home. You leave, you just bring your physical self and, your mental state, what you've learned, and that's it. You leave the spiritual and the emotional at home. I'm like, no, I can't be half of my being. Everything comes in fours, the 4 directions, the 4 sacred herbs, all these lessons that the Ojibwe and a lot of tribal cultures are taught. I can't bring half myself. Then I can't give my full self if I don't bring that emotion and learn. I gotta learn to balance them all, and I'm still learning that. And it's amazing, so I'm very grateful and humble. Shimi Witch, which is a big thank you. I can sign a copy, $5. What's here that just about the treaties of the lands that were ceded to the government in these 4 ceded territories, and then some posters and stuff, but also I will bring these. I just found out from Adrian that there's a table that we can put this stuff on. I wish I knew that earlier, because I would have had it over there. But yes, and also for the people who are online, I'm currently helping my sister. She's a phenomenal artist. She's getting her stuff back up and running. Hold on. This is her artwork. She creates this freehand. These are 2 wall-sized paintings. This is from the Ojibwe Community College in Michigan. She was supposed to send me the information. She's given a presentation, and another friend of mine and is going to play the flute, the wood flute there, and for her presentation. And if you want to know, you can contact me through my email, anything, and then that's my sister's artwork, and I'm going to eventually help her promote her and get her website so she can do prints, whereas this was a commission piece. And, we have a lot of power where we need to support each other. So, bewitch. Any questions? Yes, in the back?
I just want to say thank you. I mean, you got the standing ovation, which is beautiful. But thank you for being here. This is something I mean, you see the stuff I'm wearing.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to see you here. Still here.
Well, it's wonderful to see everybody, because on the webinar, that was the most bizarre thing. I felt like I was talking to myself. And the spider that came down to visit me. I was like, okay, I'm pretty Yes?
So I'm just curious, like, it's not really like myself or the people's story to tell, but like, based on you being here, like, what message do you want us to take away for you to like spread for the wolf message and for your people's message, if there is one?
I think the most important is understanding. And I think, and what it's taught me is like, I get really frustrated when I have to deal with those pure wolf haters. But I've also had to understand, they may look at me and like, I'm crazy. I mean, I am, That's the point. But when we talk about spirits and these beings, they're like, and I'm like, that's okay. I'm not trying to change their mind, but if we can communicate and come to a better understanding and we work together, and we're gonna have to kind of shift and adjust so those puzzle pieces can fit in the honor to take care of these beings that literally take care of us too. Yes? Yes. I mean, in spirit's always there. And I work out in those forests, and I stayed out of there, obviously, for those couple days, and I went out there because I do Fisher and Martin trail work in the winter. And I went out there, and I've howled with wolves when I didn't even know how, right? And I recorded myself, and I could hear it back and forth. And no one was around, and I was embarrassed to do it. Because I was thinking, oh, it's horrible, what's that wolf thinking? But it kept closer and closer and closer. And I was like, that's a little close. But when I went out there, I felt that silence and that loss in the forest. And it was just like really necessary. So, yeah. Anyone else? Yes, all the way to the back.
Thank you. In Minnesota, our lieutenant governor is a Native American. We're very excited to have her. I'm just wondering, she really promotes exactly what you're saying, and our new Secretary of Interior says the same thing. Are you seeing a trend coming back to more understanding about Native Americans?
Yeah, I see it both kind of coming up in there, but also it's just such a weird time we're in. And then, we have to walk that path together, and then the wolf will help that too. But also, finding that balance, and, but there's the politics at play are just mind-blowing, really. And we all deal with that at all levels. And because of funding and rules and regulations and policies and different state, all that. So, it's been intense, and I see that coming in more, but it's also, sorry, I got COVID just like a month ago. I get COVID fog. I was in a frame of mind and then just gone. So, yeah, me quit. Sorry.
Another session in this room at 4:25. So if you have other questions for Tanya and she feels like she wants to answer them.
I'm sorry for the misspelling of the Ojibwe language.